I found the hotel receipt in her purse while looking for car keys. The Marriott downtown, room 447, my credit card. The same night she told me she was studying late at the library. The same night I paid her spring semester tuition, $15,000. And you know what the worst part is? The room was booked under his name, my best friend, the guy who was supposed to be my best man at our wedding. What happened 10 years later? God, it still doesn't feel real. I mean, you hear about karma, right? People talk about it like it's some kind of fairy tale, some feel-good concept to make you sleep better at night after someone screws you over. But what I witnessed, what came knocking on my door a decade after my world fell apart, I couldn't have written it if I tried. Let me take you back to when I actually believed in people, when I thought love meant something, when I was stupid enough to think loyalty was real. I met Sarah in college. I was a senior, she was a sophomore. Communications major, bright smile, ambitious, talked about changing the world through media and journalism. I was already working part-time at an engineering firm, had a job lined up after graduation. I was 22, thought I had life figured out, thought I knew what real connection looked like. We dated for 3 years before I proposed. 3 years of what I thought was building something real. She'd come over to my apartment, we'd cook together, talk about our future, about the house we'd buy, the trips we'd take. She wanted to go to Paris. I was saving for that, putting away money every month in a separate account labeled Our Dreams, like some kind of idiot. I proposed on the beach. Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. It wasn't fancy, but it was us, she cried. Said yes, posted it all over social media within minutes. I remember feeling like the luckiest man alive, watching her show off that ring to everyone in the seafood restaurant we went to afterward. We got married 8 months later. Small ceremony, about 80 people. My best friend Jake was my best man. Jake and I went back to high school, played basketball together, went through breakups together, celebrated our first legal beers together. He was the brother I never had. The guy who drove 4 hours to help me move into my first apartment. The guy who lent me $2,000 when my car died and never once asked when I'd pay him back. Sarah liked Jake. They got along great, sometimes too great, but I never thought. I mean, why would I? This was my brother. This was the guy who gave a toast at my wedding about how he'd never seen me happier, about how Sarah was the best thing that ever happened to me. The first year of marriage was good, normal. We had our fights, sure. About money, about her spending, about me working too much. I'd gotten promoted to junior project manager. The hours were brutal, but the pay was good. We needed it. We were trying to build something. That's when Sarah decided she wanted to go back to school. She'd graduated with her bachelor's but wanted her master's, media studies. Said it would help her career, help her get into the positions she really wanted. Anchor positions, reporting positions, the real jobs, not the social media coordinator role she had. The program was expensive, $38,000 for 2 years. My stomach dropped when she showed me the number. But she looked at me with those eyes, talked about our future, about how this investment would pay off when she landed a 6-figure job at a major network. I said yes. Of course I said yes. You know why? Because I loved her. Because I thought that's what you do when you love someone. You invest in them. You sacrifice for them. You bet on them. I took out a loan, a personal loan, because we didn't qualify for educational loans in her name anymore. 12% interest. The payments were going to be $647 a month for 7 years. I did the math. I'd be paying for this until I was 35 years old. But I signed the papers. I made the first payment, then the second, then the third. I watched my savings account, the one labeled Our Dreams, drain away, because I had to cover our regular bills while making those loan payments. Sarah started her classes, night classes, weekend classes. She was busy, always studying, always at the library, always working on group projects. I was proud of her, exhausted, working 50-hour weeks to keep us afloat, but proud. Jake came around a lot during this time. He divorced his wife about 6 months after our wedding. Messy divorce. She'd cheated on him with a coworker, took half of everything. He was devastated. I felt for him. Sarah felt for him. We'd have him over for dinner, let him vent, be there for him the way he'd been there for me. Looking back now, I can see it. All the signs I missed because I trusted them both. The way she'd get dressed up for study groups. The way she'd laugh differently when Jake texted her. The way he'd show up when I was working late, bringing wine, saying he just wanted to check on Sarah, make sure she wasn't lonely. I was working, paying for her education, paying our mortgage, paying for the life we were building, and they were building something else entirely. It was a Tuesday, March 15th. I'll never forget that date. It's burned into my brain like a brand. I came home early. We'd finished a project ahead of schedule, and my boss told me to take the afternoon off. I was excited. I'd been working 12-hour days for 2 weeks straight. I thought maybe Sarah and I could have an actual evening together. Maybe go to that Thai place she loved. Reconnect a little. Her car was in the driveway. I remember smiling, thinking about surprising her. The house was quiet when I walked in. Too quiet. No TV on, no music, nothing. I called out her name. Nothing. I figured maybe she was napping. She'd been exhausted from all her studying lately. I went to grab a water from the fridge, and that's when I saw her purse on the counter, wide open. Her wallet was sticking out, and that's when I saw it. A receipt, just the edge of it, but something made me look. Hotel receipt, the Marriott downtown, checked in, 11:47 p.m., checked out, 2:33 a.m., 4 nights ago. The night she said she was studying late at the library. The night she came home at 3 in the morning, saying the group project ran long, saying she was sorry, saying she'd make it up to me. My hands started shaking. I pulled the receipt out fully. Room 447, charged to my credit card. My credit card, the one I'd given her for emergencies, for gas, for groceries. The room rate, $239. I stood there in my kitchen, in the house I was paying for, holding a receipt for a hotel room 3 miles away, charged to my card, on a night my wife told me she was studying. The pain, God, the pain wasn't even pain yet. It was numbness, complete disconnect from reality. This had to be a mistake. There had to be an explanation. I pulled out my phone, opened my credit card app, started scrolling through transactions, and that's when my world ended. The Marriott, 4 times in the last 6 weeks, different dates, always overnight charges, always on nights she said she was studying late. Dinner at Maggiano's, that Italian place downtown, $212. On a night I was working late, eating cold pizza at my desk. She said she'd grabbed Chipotle on the way home from class. Flowers from 1800 Flowers, $89, delivered to an address I didn't recognize. That was 3 weeks ago. I never got flowers. She told me she'd sent flowers to her grandmother who was sick. Wine, expensive wine, from that boutique place in the city, $134. We had wine at home, cheap wine, box wine, because we were saving money for her education. I scrolled back further. 2 months, 3 months. The charges went back 6 months. Hotels, restaurants, wine, gifts, thousands of dollars. All on my card. All while I was working myself into the ground, eating ramen for lunch to save money, wearing the same 3 work shirts because I couldn't justify buying new ones. I heard footsteps on the stairs. She was home. She'd been upstairs this whole time. Sarah walked into the kitchen, hair wet from a shower, in her bathrobe. She smiled at me. Actually smiled. Like everything was normal. Like she hadn't just destroyed everything. "Hey, babe, you're home early. I was just about to..." I held up the receipt. Just held it up between us. Her face changed. The smile died. The color drained. She knew. She knew I knew. "What is this?" My voice didn't sound like mine. It was hollow. Dead. "I can explain." That's what she said. I can explain. Like there was some explanation for hotel rooms and secret dinners and flowers sent to addresses I didn't know. "Explain." I said it flat. No emotion. Because I had no emotion left, I was empty. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "It's not what you think." "What do I think, Sarah? Tell me what I think." "It was just, we were just..." "Who?" I was yelling now. The emptiness was filling with rage. Hot, burning rage. "Who were you just with?" She didn't answer. She looked at the floor. Started crying. Actual tears. And that's when I heard it. A cough. From upstairs. A man's cough. My blood turned to ice. "Who's upstairs?" I walked toward the stairs. She grabbed my arm. "Wait, please, just let me." I pulled away from her and took the stairs 2 at a time. Our bedroom door was closed. I threw it open. Jake. My best friend Jake. Sitting on my bed, pulling on his shirt, his pants already on, belt unbuckled. We just stared at each other. This man I'd known for 15 years. This man who was supposed to be my brother, in my bedroom, in my house that I was paying for, after sleeping with my wife, in my bed. In the bed where I slept every night after working myself to exhaustion to pay for her dreams. I don't remember what I said. I think I screamed. I know I punched the doorframe so hard I broke 2 knuckles. I know Sarah was crying behind me, saying, "I'm sorry," over and over, like those words meant anything. Jake couldn't even look at me. He just grabbed his shoes and his keys and pushed past me, past Sarah, and ran out of the house. Literally ran. I heard his car start, heard him peel out of the driveway. I left. I got in my car, and I drove. I didn't know where I was going. I just drove. Ended up at a rest stop 2 hours away, sitting in my car, staring at nothing. The betrayal wasn't just that she cheated. It was the math of it all. The cold, brutal math. I'd paid $43,000 into that loan so far. $43,000 for her education, for her dreams, for what I thought was our future. I'd worked 60-hour weeks. I'd skipped meals. I'd worn the same clothes until they had holes. I'd said no to drinks with colleagues, no to weekend trips, no to everything, because I was investing in US. And she'd used my credit card to pay for hotel rooms to sleep with my best friend. The flowers I never got, charged to my card. The fancy dinners I never ate, charged to my card. The wine I never drank, charged to my card. I'd paid for my own humiliation. I'd financed my own betrayal. I filed for divorce the next day, didn't go home, checked into a motel with what cash I had in my wallet and called a divorce attorney from the parking lot at 7 a.m. when they opened. She fought it. Of course she fought it. Wanted half of everything. Wanted alimony. Wanted me to keep paying for her education because we'd made that decision together as a married couple. The audacity, the sheer audacity of that woman. My lawyer was good, but she was better. She had texts she'd saved where I'd said I was happy to support her dreams. She had emails where I'd talked about how proud I was of her going back to school. She painted me as controlling, as someone who was trying to punish her for growing apart. Growing apart, that's what she called it. Not cheating, not betrayal. Growing apart. The judge gave her 40% of our savings. Ordered me to keep making the loan payments since it was in my name and taken out during the marriage. She got the car, the newer car that I'd bought, because she said her old one wasn't safe. I got the mortgage, the debt, and the ghost of what I thought my life was going to be. I lost $78,000 in that divorce. $78,000. Money I'd saved, money I'd borrowed, money I'd bled for. Jake disappeared. Deleted all his social media. Moved out of state. I heard through mutual friends he got a job in Colorado. I hope he's miserable there. I hope the altitude gives him headaches every single day. Sarah finished her master's degree. On my dime. Got a job at a local news station. Started posting glamorous photos on Instagram. Living her best life. The life I'd paid for. I had to tell people. Had to explain why we were getting divorced. Had to watch the pity in their eyes. The whispers. The way mutual friends chose sides. Most chose hers. She was better at the social game than me. Better at making herself the victim. My family was furious. My mother cried. My father wanted to confront Jake himself. But what good would it do? The damage was done. I lost friends. Real friends. People I'd known for years who decided they didn't want to be involved in drama. As if I'd created this. As if I'd done anything except love someone and trust someone and work my ass off to build a future. Work became my escape. I threw myself into projects. Took on extra assignments. Worked weekends. Anything to not be alone with my thoughts. Alone with the betrayal. Alone with the humiliation. I moved out of our house. Couldn't afford to keep it and pay my half of the divorce settlement. Moved into a 1-bedroom apartment in a worse part of town. The place smelled like old carpet, and the neighbors fought every night. But it was mine. Just mine. No ghosts. No memories of her showering after being with him. No memories of making him dinner while he was upstairs with my wife. I stopped dating. Couldn't even imagine trusting someone again. Every woman I met, I'd wonder. Wonder if she'd do the same thing. Wonder what her price was. Wonder how long before she'd betray me, too. I went to therapy. Sat in that uncomfortable chair, across from a kind woman named Dr. Martinez, who told me it wasn't my fault. that I'd done nothing wrong, that betrayal says everything about the betrayer and nothing about the betrayed. I didn't believe her. I kept thinking I must have done something, must have not been enough, must have worked too much, or not been romantic enough, or not been attentive enough. There had to be a reason, right? People don't just destroy someone who loves them for no reason. But they do. That's what I learned. They do. 10 years passed. A decade. It sounds like a long time when you say it like that, but it went faster than you'd think. I rebuilt. Not the life I'd planned, but a life. I got promoted. Senior project manager, then director. The money got better. I paid off that damn student loan, her student loan that I'd promised to pay. Took me 9 years instead of 7 because of the divorce costs. But I paid every penny. I bought a house. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. Actually mine. No shared mortgage. No memories of anyone else in it. I painted the walls myself. Picked out furniture slowly, piece by piece. Choosing things I actually liked instead of compromising. I started dating again. Casually at first. Nothing serious. I was upfront about my baggage, about my trust issues. Most women understood. Some didn't and moved on. That was okay. Eventually, I met Michelle. She was different. Patient. Kind. Had her own career, her own money, her own life. Didn't need me to finance her dreams because she was busy building her own. We took things slow. Really slow. It took me 2 years to propose, and even then, I was terrified. But Michelle was solid. She never gave me a reason to doubt her. Never made me feel like I was crazy for being cautious. She understood that my scars ran deep, and she never tried to rush the healing. We got married in a small ceremony. Just family. No best man this time. I didn't want one. Didn't trust one. Life was good. Not perfect. Life's never perfect, but good. Stable. Peaceful. I'd stopped thinking about Sarah except when something would trigger a memory. A song, a restaurant, a street corner. But even those moments got easier. Less painful. More like looking at an old scar than feeling a fresh wound. I'd see her occasionally. On TV, doing local news segments. She'd moved up from the small station to a bigger network affiliate. Good for her, I guess. I'd changed the channel. Jake? I never saw him again. Heard through the grapevine that he'd gotten married, had kids, got divorced again. Karma? Maybe. I didn't care enough to find out more. I thought I'd moved on. I thought the chapter was closed. I thought I'd never have to think about that betrayal again, except as a cautionary tale, a lesson learned, a painful part of my past that shaped who I became. I was wrong. It was a Saturday morning in October. Beautiful fall day. Michelle and I were drinking coffee on the porch, talking about maybe taking a trip to Vermont to see the leaves. Life was simple. Good. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello? Is this? A woman's voice. Hesitant. Is this David? Yeah, who's this? My name is Amanda, Jake's wife. Well, ex-wife now. My entire body went cold. Jake's ex-wife was calling me? I'm sorry to call you out of the blue like this. I got your number from. It took me a while to find you. I wasn't sure if I should reach out, but I felt like you deserved to know. Know what? My voice was tight. Michelle was looking at me with concern. Jake died. 2 weeks ago. Heart attack. He was only 43. I didn't know what to say. I felt nothing. No sadness, no satisfaction, nothing. Just emptiness. I'm sorry for your loss, I said, because what else do you say? That's not why I'm calling. She paused. After he died, I was going through his things. There was a box in his storage unit. Letters, journals, stuff from before we got married. And there was something in there about you. About Sarah. About what happened. My heart started pounding. He'd written about it. Pages and pages. He felt guilty, David. Really guilty. He'd written about wanting to apologize to you. About how he'd destroyed the best friendship he ever had. How he'd betrayed you in the worst way possible. Okay. My voice was flat. But that's not the part I thought you should know about. Another pause. There was a letter from Sarah to Jake, dated about 6 months before everything happened with you and her. What did it say? She'd been planning it, the whole thing. She wrote about how you were useful but boring, how she'd never really loved you but you were a good provider, how she and Jake should be together but they needed to wait until you'd finished paying for her school, so she could leave with her degree and without the debt. The world tilted. Michelle grabbed my arm, asking if I was okay. I wasn't okay. I was hearing that the last 10 years of believing I'd at least meant something, that our marriage had at least been real at some point, that the betrayal had been some kind of passionate mistake. All of it was a lie. It had been calculated, planned, premeditated. I'd been used deliberately, systematically, cruelly. She wrote that? I could barely get the words out. I have the letter. I can send it to you if you want. I thought you deserved to know the truth, that it wasn't just an affair. It was worse than that. We talked for a few more minutes. She gave me her email, said she was sorry, said Jake had been a terrible person to both of us, said she hoped I'd found happiness. After I hung up, I sat there staring at nothing. Michelle was asking questions, but I couldn't hear her. All I could hear was Sarah's voice from 10 years ago. I can explain. It's not what you think. I'm sorry. She'd never been sorry. She'd been caught. That's all. If I hadn't come home early that day, if I hadn't seen that receipt, she would have kept going, would have kept using me, kept draining me, until she was ready to leave on her terms. The email came that evening. Amanda had scanned the letter. I read it 3 times. Sarah's handwriting, her words, talking about me like I was a walking ATM, talking about how boring I was, how I worked all the time, yeah, to pay for your life, Sarah. How she and Jake had real chemistry, but needed to be smart about timing. There was a line in there that killed me. David will be devastated, but he'll be fine eventually. He's the type who just keeps going. And honestly, he should thank me for setting him free to find someone on his own level. The arrogance, the sheer cruelty of it. I didn't plan to do anything with the information. What was the point? Jake was dead. The past was the past. I had a good life now. But then, 3 days after that phone call, there was a knock on my door. I opened it. Sarah was standing there. I hadn't seen her in person in almost 8 years. She'd aged. Not badly, but she'd aged. The smile lines were deeper. Her hair was different, shorter, with some gray she'd tried to cover. She was dressed professionally. A blazer and slacks. News anchor armor. David, she said, my name like we were old friends. Like she hadn't destroyed me. Sarah, what do you want? Can I come in? I need to talk to you. Every fiber of my being wanted to slam the door in her face. But Michelle was behind me, and I didn't want to seem petty. Didn't want to give Sarah the satisfaction of seeing she still had power over me. Fine. 5 minutes. She came in, looked around my living room. I saw her clock the family photos on the wall. Me and Michelle, my parents, Michelle's kids from her first marriage. You remarried. It wasn't a question. Yeah. Was there something you needed? She sat down without being invited. The audacity was still there, I noticed. That entitlement that had always been part of her personality, but I'd been too in love to see clearly. I heard you talk to Amanda, Jake's ex-wife. Of course she knew. They probably still talked. Probably stayed friends after destroying their respective marriages. I did. She told you about the letter. She did. Sarah looked uncomfortable for the first time. Good. David. That letter. It was written in a bad moment. I was confused. I was young. I didn't mean those things. I laughed. Actually laughed. You were 27 years old, Sarah. Not a child. A grown woman who made grown choices. I'm trying to apologize. Now? 10 years later? Why now? What do you want? She looked at her hands. I wanted you to know that I'm sorry. Really sorry. And I wanted to ask you for a favor. A favor. She wanted a favor. Are you serious right now? I'm losing my job. The station is downsizing. They're letting me go in 3 months. And I can't find anything else. The market is bad. No one's hiring. I have bills. I have debt. I have... Stop. I held up my hand. Let me get this straight. You used me, betrayed me, took my money, ruined my life, and now you want... Twat. Help finding a job? Money? What? I just thought maybe you could put in a word at your company. You're a director now. You have connections. I just need something to... Get out. David, please. Get out. My voice was steel, cold, final. Michelle appeared from the hallway. I think you should leave. Sarah stood up. She looked angry now. The mask was slipping. You know what? You were always like this. Cold. Unforgiving. This is why I left you. And there it was, the real Sarah, the one who couldn't take responsibility, the one who rewrote history to make herself the victim. You didn't leave me, Sarah. You betrayed me. You used me. You planned it. I have the letter. I have proof of what you really are. So you can leave now with some dignity. Or I can read you your own words about how boring and useful I was while you were sleeping with my best friend in the bed I paid for. Her face went pale. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Sarah, she turned. I did thank you, by the way, for setting me free. You were right about that one thing. I found someone on my level, and it turns out my level is way higher than you ever were. She left. I watched her get into her car, an older model, I noticed, with a dent in the bumper, and drive away. I closed the door and realized my hands were shaking. Not from anger, from relief, from closure. From the realization that she had no power over me anymore. None. Michelle hugged me, asked if I was okay. I was. I really was. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the letter, about Sarah's words, about Jake's guilt, about the 10 years I'd spent rebuilding myself from the ashes of their betrayal. I thought about all the money, the $80-some thousand that went into her education, the divorce, the debt, money I'd never get back, money that represented years of my life, hours of my labor, sacrifices I'd made believing I was building a future. But here's the thing, I realized. Lying there in bed next to my wife, in the house I'd bought with money I'd earned, looking at the life I'd built from nothing. They didn't win. Sarah was losing her job, living in debt, alone, as far as I could tell. No ring on her finger, no photos of kids or a partner in her social media. Just her, posing in front of various news station logos, trying to project success while I could see the desperation in her eyes. Jake was dead, 43 years old, heart attack. Alone in Colorado, apparently. Died with guilt, according to his ex-wife. Died knowing he'd destroyed the best friendship he ever had for a woman who'd used him the same way she'd used me. And me, I was happy. Actually happy. I had a wife who loved me for who I was, not what I could provide. I had a career I'd built through my own merit. I had peace, real peace, the kind that comes from knowing you survived something that should have destroyed you. I didn't get revenge. Not really. I didn't have to. Life gave them consequences, all on its own. Karma, universe, God. Whatever you want to call it, justice came without me lifting a finger. The pain from that betrayal? It's still there. Not as sharp, not as consuming, but there. Like an old injury that aches when the weather changes. Some scars don't fully heal, and that's okay. They're proof you survived. Proof you were strong enough to endure something that would break most people. I learned things about myself in those 10 years. I learned I was stronger than I thought, that I could survive losing everything and build it back better, that the worst thing that ever happened to me didn't have to define me. I learned that some people are just takers. They're not evil, exactly. They're just fundamentally selfish in a way that makes them incapable of real love. They see other people as tools, as means to an end. And no matter how much you give them, how much you sacrifice for them, how much you love them, they'll never see you as fully human, just useful. Sarah was a taker. Jake was a taker. They took from me, took from each other, took from everyone around them, and in the end, they were left with nothing, because that's how taking works. You can't build a life on what you take from others. Eventually, you run out of people willing to give, and you're left alone with the consequences of your choices. I'm not saying I'm glad it happened. I'm not one of those people who says everything happens for a reason, or it was a blessing in disguise. It wasn't. It was cruel and painful and unfair. But I'm saying I survived it. More than survived, I transcended it. I became someone better, someone stronger, someone more careful with my trust but not cynical. Someone who knows love is real because I found it again, and this time with someone who actually deserves it. The night Sarah showed up at my door was the last time I'll ever see her. I'm sure of that. There's nothing left between us. No anger, no love, no connection at all. She's just a person who used to be in my life, who taught me a painful lesson I didn't want to learn. And Jake, I hope he found peace before he died. I really do. Not for him, but for me. Because I don't want to carry hate anymore. It's exhausting, it's heavy, and it's giving them more space in my life than they deserve. I was paid $43,000 for the best lesson I've ever learned. that you can't love people into being who you want them to be. You can't sacrifice enough to make someone stay. You can't give enough to make someone loyal. Those things either exist in a person or they don't. I paid for her education. She slept with my best friend. Those are the facts. But here are the other facts. I rebuilt. I remarried. I found happiness. I won. Not because they suffered, though they did, but because I refused to let their betrayal be the end of my story. I refused to become bitter. I refused to stop trusting all people just because two people weren't trustworthy. I refused to let them take anything else from me. That's the real karma. Not that they got what they deserved, though they did, but that I became someone who deserved better, and I found better. If you've been betrayed like this, if someone you loved has used you and discarded you and left you feeling worthless, hear me when I say this. It wasn't about you. It was never about you. It was about them, their brokenness, their selfishness, their inability to love in any real way. And you will survive this. You will rebuild. You will find people who see your worth and honor it. You will look back one day and realize that the person who hurt you actually freed you to find something real. It won't happen overnight. It took me 10 years. But it will happen. And when it does, when that person shows up at your door, desperate and broken, and asking for help, you'll feel nothing. No anger, no pain, no satisfaction. Just peace. Because you'll realize they can't hurt you anymore. They have no power. They're just a stranger who used to know you when you were someone else. That letter Amanda sent me, I printed it, put it in a folder in my desk. I look at it sometimes, not to torture myself, but to remind myself of what I survived. To remind myself that people will tell you they love you while planning to betray you. To remind myself to never take loyalty for granted. To never assume love is real until it's proven over time. But mostly, I keep it to remind myself that I'm not that person anymore. Not the naive 26-year-old who thought love conquered all. Not the broken 30-year-old who thought he'd never trust again. I'm someone else now. Someone better. Someone who learned to love with wisdom instead of blindness. Sarah taught me what love isn't. Michelle taught me what love is. Jake taught me what friendship isn't. My real friends, the ones who stayed, who supported me through the divorce, who never judged me, taught me what friendship is. And life taught me that karma is real. Not always fast, not always obvious, but real. The universe has a way of balancing the scales. Sometimes it takes a decade, but it happens. If you believe that karma never forgets, that betrayal always comes with a cost, that good people who endure bad things eventually find good things again, then this story is for you. If you're going through something similar right now, if you're in the middle of the pain and can't see a way out, this story is for you too. Because you need to know it gets better. Not easier, not immediately, but better. You will survive this. You will rebuild. You will find your peace. And one day, the person who destroyed you will show up desperate and broken, and you'll feel nothing but pity for them. Because they're